Hi everyone, my name is Lisa Kerr, and this is my Welcome to Milwaukee, Wisconsin Social Work 541, My Community in Words and Pictures project, presented by me. I'll begin my presentation with a personal photo at the top of my family. This photo was taken downtown Milwaukee last spring for my nephew and my youngest sister's prom. My nephew's pictured in the red blazer, and my youngest sister is pictured in the red dress. Below that photo, we see a skyline photo of downtown Milwaukee, where we see the beautiful lakefront and some of the buildings downtown, as well as the Milwaukee Art Museum, which is that white building by the lakefront. Next, we will talk about the geographical layout of the city. Here we have a map of Milwaukee, and we can see that there's a body of water that encompasses the west side of Milwaukee, which is Lake Michigan. And we also see that Milwaukee is broken down into 7 districts. This is the center of Milwaukee, and then if we're going away from the center of the city, we go into the suburbs on the outskirts of the city, which some of the suburbs are Menominee Falls, Brookfield, Elm Grove, New Berlin, Greendale, West Allis, Wauwatosa, Pewaukee, and Waukesha. These are the main suburb counties that surround the inner city. Next, we can talk about the demographic information of the city. According to the 2020 census, Milwaukee has over 500,000 people that reside in the city. Overall, the census does declare that the overall population of the city is decreasing instead of increasing. The racial breakdown of the city looks like 44.4% of Milwaukee residents are white, 38.7% are African American or Black. Asian people make up 4.3%. Native Americans or American Indian people make up 0.6%. And Hispanic people make up 19% of the racial breakdown. The gender breakdown of the city, more than half of the percent of the city is female at 51.9%. The age distribution of the city, 4% of the residents are under the age of 5. 25.9% of Milwaukee residents are 18 and above. 10.5% are considered senior citizens and older than the age of 65. Another interesting fact that I learned from the census was that 10% of Milwaukee's residents are foreign-born. I found this fact really interesting because personally, I am a foreign-born resident of Milwaukee because I was born in Jamaica and migrated to this country when I was a toddler. Some more demographic information here. The quality of life in Milwaukee can be described as not the best. Milwaukee has been rated one of the worst places to live to be African American and raise a family. And that could just be due to the crime rates and the lack of opportunities, especially for Black Americans. Crime rates in the city of Milwaukee, according to the niche.com survey, gave Milwaukee overall a safety and crime rating of a C-. 42% of the residents from that survey explain that they feel somewhat safe living in Milwaukee. The poverty levels in Milwaukee is about 25.4%. Again, we see most of the poverty concentrated within African American and Latino communities, which are disproportionately in the city part, in the north part of Milwaukee. The religious affiliations that are most popular in the city of Milwaukee is Catholic and Lutheran. Here on this side, we see 2 pie charts. that is comparing and contrasting the racial breakdown of specific zip codes. One zip code on the right is a 53022 zip code, and that is a suburban zip code. And the other zip code on the left pie chart is a 53223 zip code, and that is an urban north side of Milwaukee city zip code. I chose to incorporate these pie charts because both of these zip codes were places that I lived or live currently. The 53223 zip code is an urban city zip code, and I lived in that particular zip code growing up. And we see from the pie chart that the majority of people that live in that zip code are African American or Black people at 48%. In that zip code, we also see 5.8% Asian people, 39.1% white people, 3.6% Hispanic people, and lastly 0.4% of the people in this zip code, 53223, is American Indian. On the flip side, we see the suburban zip code 53022, a very drastic difference in the racial breakdown, with 91.1% of the people living in that zip code being white and 2.2% being Black, 3.2% Asian, 2% Hispanic, and 0.2% Native American. Here is an overview of some formal Milwaukee institutions. The first picture here at the top right corner is my personal high school that I went to in Milwaukee and graduated in 2012 from, and it's called Milwaukee Rufus King International Baccalaureate High School. It is a public high school, and as I stated before, public high schools in Milwaukee are not really funded well, and they're not the best for the most part, but this public high school was a little different from others and had a little bit more resources for their students. Below that picture, we see another photo of the Milwaukee Art Museum downtown, which is a very popular tourist attraction, and it's really well known for the architectural layout and build of the building. Right next to that photo, we see right here the Milwaukee Municipal Court, also known as the courthouse, that's located downtown Milwaukee. Lastly, we see an academic institution at the bottom of this slide, and this academic institution is University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, also known as UWM. Some informal Milwaukee institutions. Of course, Milwaukee is the home of the Milwaukee Bucks, and I had to incorporate that in my presentation because the city celebrated a huge win with the Milwaukee Bucks last year for the NBA championship. So here we have the basketball team's logo, and at the bottom right hand corner we have a picture of their star player Giannis. Above his picture, there's a picture of the Milwaukee Brewery Company. Milwaukee's also very well known for their beer and their brewery. Here is a picture of the Ladybug building that is located downtown Milwaukee on Water Street, and the building is just really famous for having these 3 large ladybugs on the side of the building. Lastly, at the bottom we have a picture of the Peist Theater, which really speaks to the German immigrant culture that Milwaukee was built off of. This is a German theater that is 126 years old and was first built in 1895, when we saw a lot of the German immigrants coming into Milwaukee. Lastly, we will do a good community assessment of Milwaukee based off of the Ohio State University Journal about what is a good community. I consider Milwaukee a good place to live, but specifically depending on what part of the city that you're living in. Of course, some parts of the city, like North Milwaukee, have higher rates of crime, less opportunities for employment, poor public educational resources for children, and large parts of the city are considered to be a food desert. But however, there are other parts of the city like East Milwaukee, West Milwaukee, and the suburbs of Milwaukee that I would strongly consider a good community, and it would meet the good community criteria because of the safe environment that's located there, and day-to-day interactions between the residents that live in those parts of Milwaukee are pretty predictable. There's a sense of homogeneousness that prevents large conflicts within these communities, and there are many opportunities for good employment and better educational resources in public schools. Some of the changes that I would do in Milwaukee would revolve around more blue and white collar jobs in urban areas of the city. And I would definitely want to invest more money into Milwaukee public school system, also known as MPS. And lastly, I would like to loosen some of the voting restriction laws, especially the laws that are targeted for convicted felons that are released, so that it will help them be reacclimated into the community. That pretty much concludes my presentation, and this slide is just displaying my references for my presentation. Thank you all.